Hello everyone, it's David again. I'm on Season 3, Episode 18, Walkabout. Now, I can tell you, having been, or being, I should say, a recovering alcoholic, yes, there are certain groups that do walkabouts, but it's not like, the Western conception of it. You have to do a lot of spiritual practice before, during, and after the walkabout. You don't just go walk around for 4 or 5 days and all of a sudden there you are and you just go live a happy rest of your life. So yes, there is such a thing as a walkabout. If you Google it, you'll find out more about it. A Narn heavy cruiser commanded by Nicole is now jumped into Babylon 5 space. And we zip on in, and Lita walks in, and she's questioning the med staff about Kosh's death, wanting to find out if a piece of him survived in somebody else. And the answer, she thinks at first, is no. He didn't survive. We zip on in, and a Vorlon transport arrives with the new ambassador, as John Sheridan's taken a walk out on the upper pylon with his metallic boots. The ship stops, does zip ups, and flashes him some words, I guess, in Vorlon. If anyone knows, some people say they can read, into the side of the ship when it changes patterns, that it says things like welcome or hello or something like that. I personally don't see anything on the side of the ships. I've just never been very good at that sort of thing. But if you can read whatever the transport says, go ahead and leave that comment down below. We zip on in and they cue the entrance. Jakar is giving Nicole a welcome dinner, and he serves breen. No, not breen, but Swedish meatballs. It seems that every single sentient race has a recipe for Swedish meatballs. I asked a Swedish friend of mine. Yes, they do know about the Swedish meatballs seen in Babylon 5, and they're absolutely tickled pink that, every sentient race has Swedish meatballs. We learned from Nicole that no more than 10 Narn ships have survived the Centauri War, some being cannibalized to save others. Sheridan and Ivanova greet Kosh, as we call him Ukesh, I guess is his name, but they are to keep Kosh's death a secret. And they said, well, how do we refer to you in private? He says, Kosh. And I said, yeah, we know Ambassador Kosh is dead. How do we refer to you? And he walks away saying, we are all Kosh. And Ivanova quips to Captain, Sheridan quips to Ivanova, yep, he's a Vorlon all right. We zip on in, and Dr. Franklin is on his walkabout. Michael Garibaldi pops in to say hello, because he hadn't been in his quarters in many days. Make sure he hadn't been hijacked or something. We zip on in, and Lita goes to see the quarters where Kosh was, and she gets kind of an imprint, if you will, a psych imprint of what had happened. So she knows basically that Kosh has died and that there was a human of some kind at the scene, as we know as Mr. Morden. This was also, it was Ambassador Kosh Ulkesh who saw the imprint of the battle scene, and Lita walks in. Case of worst timing I've never seen. And she's talking to him and basically says, I could not even get a piece of him. So he subscribes to this as failure. And he says, follow. And she's got that look on her face, like when Dad is about to take you into the woodshed because you done messed up. That's the look Lita has. And she's talking later, or kind of debriefing Sheridan about meeting the new ambassador. She says, it's been a long time since one of them has died. They are taking it pretty hard. Well, I guess the last war would be 1,000 years ago, so I would assume some Vorlons were killed during that war, or would it have been the last great war, the 10,000 year war? So either way, it's been a long time. And Sheridan's like, well, if there's a problem, and let me know about it. And he says, is there a problem? However, as Lita's not facing him, it comes out in Kosh's voice. Is there a problem? And that kind of spins her head like, where the hell did that come from? And so, no, there's no problem. I'll let you know. We zip on over, and Dr. Franklin falls in love with a cabaret singer who ends up stealing his card to get her pain medications. And it reminds me of an episode when I was on the nurses union, and we got a nurse who was accused of stealing 500 vials of Dilaudid. And now Dilaudid is a synthetic morphine. It's about 4 times stronger than morphine. I had it once when I was passing a kidney stone, and let me tell you, that is some good stuff. But at any rate, so of course she was alleged to have been stealing it using other nurses' login keys. Even though we are always told as a nurse or a doctor, do not share your login information, a lot of people would do just to save time. Hey, since you're in there, can I go ahead and get some morphine out? Sure, I'll key it out for you. Even though we've been told never to do that, they were all doing it on the unit she was working on. So you say, well, why not just drug test her? And they did. And she was clean, believe it or not. Well, how the hell did that happen? So, of course, they reported it to the State Board of Nursing. And the State Board of Nursing, up until about 2 weeks before they held their final, they were going to let her go. Because even though it was circumstantial information, she passed her drug test, you know, what the hell? Where did the Dilaudid go then? Well, at another hospital, one of the sister hospitals to the one I worked at, she showed up there one day. And they're like, what are you doing here? And she goes, oh, I'm with Share Care and blah, 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 acting kind of strange. So they called our hospital saying, hey, nurse so-and-so still work there? And they're like, no. In fact, she's got a do not return trespassing notice. So they called the police and arrested her for trespassing. Found out later on security cameras she was going into our cancer ward, which is kind of a separate entity of the main hospital. And what happened was she was dating one of the doctors at the hospital. And even though her card had been keyed out of the system saying do not let her in, she was taking, while he was asleep, she was taking his ID card, keying herself in and using the other nurses' logins because they weren't dumb enough to keep the same login code. You should have called security and had it changed, but no. So, and she was stealing out of our cancer center, the main hospital, you know, just very brazen that, you know, there was a problem. And she finally said that it was her mother who was dying and on hospice care. I tend to really don't believe, and neither do any of the other nurses that were on the committee that was like judging her, because you said you would have killed your mother would have died, number one, and number two, hospice provides you with pain medication. You don't need to steal your own from the nurse's station. We think that she either had a gambling problem or a spending problem. So, if you're a doctor or a nurse, for the love of God, never send your Pexis information to other people. So, and Dr. Franklin also had to learn that lesson the hard way too. We zip on in, and Lita is come on board the White Star to kill a shadow vessel. And they end up being successful, but they can't jump for 20 minutes after killing a vessel. So the other vessels jump in, thanks to Jakar, who basically twisted Nicole's arm and got a bunch of the other League ambassadors to also send in ships. So we have a first victory one-on-one against the Shadows. And in Lita's mind, we don't know if it was from Sheridan or leftover impressions from Kosh, but we hear the phrase, and so it begins in Lita's mind. Now, we zip on back to Babylon 5, and they've got their first victory against the Shadows. They now know how to kill a shadow vessel. Lita goes to debrief Ambassador Ulkesh. And she basically says she doesn't have a piece of him, but it's possible somebody else does, referring to Captain Sheridan. And gets the most, well, I guess, a surprised look from the ambassador, like, what did you just say? So, but they don't follow up for several vessels, or several episodes, I should say. But like I say, it's science fiction, not science fact. So, I guess does anybody have a really good recipe for brain? I'd sure love to hear about it. In fact, I'd like you to make and send me some. So, because I love brain. Brain is a wonderful dish. Anyways, as always, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Hope you all have a good rest of your day.